What's going on, everybody? Just got back from Ozark Gravel Doom, and this race has like a huge social media following, so I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you also have been keeping up with what happened over the weekend. I don't know when this video is coming out. It might be next week or after the event, but we'll see. I can't say that race went to anybody's plans, really. There's a lot to unpack here. This video begins with a complete full 1-day delay of the entire event that we learned about the week of the event. Luckily, it's a bikepacking event. Most people had booked at least a long stay, and Andrew O'Mara, who is the race promoter, he added a 50-mile category for people who still wanted to come but didn't have the scheduling to be able to do more than a quick day ride, which I thought was really smart of him. Quick shout out to Andrew. If you haven't, give him a follow. He's still out there not sleeping, waiting for people to finish. Today is April 10th. And Andrew is still posting about how he is not slept because he stays up and makes sure he's there when everyone finishes. Man, there's even a water boil advisory out there now. It's wild. There's a ton of tornadoes coming through Arkansas, the week of the race. And we ended up even driving through a tornado warning once we got to Branson. So just tons of flooding everywhere, and Andrew completely reworked all 3 routes to try to minimize water crossings. And Chase and I, and Gentry was there too, did an extensive amount of course recon. We drove hours out there just kind of seeing what was going on. And shout out to Chevy Colorado Trail Boss, because I did not expect that truck to be as capable of an off-roader as it is, and pretty blown away by some of this. We were driving through legitimate single truck 4x4 situations.
Oh God, this is no, I can literally touch this.
And we also drove through one of the water crossings that literally came above the wheel wells on the truck. My parents came to this event too. My dad participated and my mom was there, and they got there Saturday night before the race started. We went to the meeting and everything, and it was super cool to catch up with everybody who I've become friends with over the last 3 years, kind of centering around this event. It's funny, if you're at the event, we really appreciate all the support. Chase and I, literally every person we ran into was like, "Oh, I love your videos, so thank you so much for all that. We appreciate it." And again, feel free to come say hi. We got our trackers. The one thing that we forgot was the batteries. So the night before the race, I made an hour and a half trip out to go get some AAA batteries for those things. King River Country Store, this place freaking rocks. We're gonna switch places, and Chase is gonna talk about her race first. She did the 100-mile and I did the 200-mile.
What's up, y'all? So for the first time ever, for whatever reason, I agreed to go with Jesse and do Doom. Originally, if you watched our bike check video, I was going to do Dismay and ended up dropping down to Despair, the 100-mile version, because I was super sick. Everyone keeps telling me I had norovirus. So I lost just over 8 pounds in 24 hours from that, and was just still feeling a little off. Figured the 100 is already, that's ridiculously hard anyway with the amount of climbing. It would have been the hardest 100 I've ever done. Regardless, I was in for a big day. Jesse touched on the reroutes a little bit with the high water. The Despair route actually became closer to 185 to 192-ish roughly. But then the Dismay route, the 100-mile route, got bumped up to 115. So Jesse's distance got shortened a little bit. Mine got bumped up.
Mine was shortened by 5 miles.
Okay, so Jesse's got shortened down to 195, but mine got bumped up by 15 miles. There was definitely a part of me that was oh, at this point I should have just stuck with Despair. But yeah, that is what it is. It was a little hectic getting to the start because, like Jesse mentioned, we had Gentry with us. So we did this trip with our 2.5-year-old daughter. And with all of the noise in the cabin, we were up getting ready at 5:15 in the morning. So we also had a very cranky, mad 2.5-year-old that just wanted me to hold her. So that added a whole other level of pain for me trying to get ready because she didn't want anyone else. And you know, that's fine, is what it is. I kind of expected that, but it made getting to the starting line a little hard. And I was actually a little bit late getting to the start. Like I made it down there, I think like 2 minutes before Andrew kicked us off. And the whole time I could hear Gentry just like screaming in the distance, a little bit of chaos. You start out climbing out of the ranch. The first creek crossing on the way up the hill out of the ranch, super chill, it had gone down a lot. Going into the event, that same creek crossing was pretty high the day and 2 days before the race. So I was stoked that I didn't have to go through high water at the start because it was 35 degrees and a misty rain the entire time, like from the start of the race to the end. And I actually think it was getting a little bit cooler as the day went on too. So I was stoked to not get extra wet 5 minutes into the long ass ride that I was starting to get on. Started up the climb, whole bunch of people together. I could see Jesse and his group up the hill a little bit more. And I was just around a bunch of people that everyone kind of just going at their own pace. Ran into my friend Bradley, rode with him up the hill a little bit. And that's when he gave me some like the best advice. And it sounds a little weird, but he just told me like, hey, like, just remember, like, don't be afraid to walk up the hills, like if you need to. And thinking about that, I was like, what? And then I thought about it. My bike is heavier. It's more climbing than I'm used to. It's really good advice. So thanks, Bradley.
Real quick before we get back to Ozark Doom, Chase is the event planner for this. This is not a bicycle station event. This is a Brown County Mountain Biking, which is the local trail association here for Brown County. And this is the information for the 2025 Brown County Epic Festival, which is not a race at all. It's just like a big fun time. Usually it's like a 500-600 person event. There'll be like a bunch of food, music, a big ride, camping, and then usually there's an expo. We're working on getting some cool stuff for the expo this year right now, but if you want to sign up, we can get you a little bit of a discount. If you use code Bicycle Station, you'll get 10% off your registration for the event. It is again September 25th through 28th. We will be there. If you want to come hang out, sign up for this. Back to Ozark Gravel Doom.
Got to the top of that climb and I actually had to stop with a whole other group of people to take off a layer. I started out with my Cotopaxi puffy jacket on. I hate this jacket so much. It is honestly never warm enough for me, and so I've just been using it as like my beater jacket for the last few years. Like it's just not one I've ever vibed with. But I started out with this as one of my layers. And with the first climb, I was immediately sweating in it. And I was like, okay, I overdressed. So I just went ahead and tried to shove it in this bag. And there was a good chunk of the jacket that was just like hanging out right here for a good chunk of the race. Like I had it zipped up to like here. So there was like a tiny bit just hanging out. I ended up fixing it like halfway through what I rode because I got tired of people trying to tell me that my zipper, like my bag wasn't zipped. And I was like, I know. So I finally stopped and I just took all of the gels out because I was just tired of like, thank you. First of all, thank you for anyone, if you were one of the people that told me my bag was unzipped. I was aware, but if in case, like, I appreciate it, super nice. But I ended up taking all of my gels out and tried to like load up as many as I could into my top tube bag, which is there. My top tube bag. I was just like putting them in my side zipper pockets on my rain jacket. So it was kind of fun. So that was the immediate start. And we started out, once we got to the top of the ranch, it was a longer road descent. Took a little bit before we got onto gravel, or it felt like a little bit. And I was just having fun, just riding, honestly, just talking to people. If you said hi, like Jesse already mentioned, thank you, we appreciate it. It was super fun for me to see how many of you guys recognized this bike from YouTube. There was one guy that was like, oh, that bike's YouTube famous. And I was like, whoa. So that was super fun. One thing I really loved about this event, I wasn't smashing it up every hill. I felt like I was keeping my pace pretty consistent, and mentally it was like just reminding myself like, hey, you're gonna be out here for a really long time, like just ride. Gave me a chance just to like hang out, talk to people a little bit more. Once I got to around mile 25 or so, everyone just kind of scattered, disappeared a little bit more. There was a really, really long climb, County Road 5. It's like an 11-mile climb, but parts of it got pretty steep. That was when everyone I was around just disappeared. Like there were a ton of people walking their bikes up it. I thought about walking my bike a few times, but then I was like, meh, no, my legs are still feeling good. Like I was able to keep a pretty good cadence and just take my time spinning up it. But that was when I kind of found myself totally alone. And I got to a highway, the big climb, and then it's pretty mellow at the top, but once I wasn't climbing, I started to get colder. And part of that, like, it was still raining this entire time, like just a misty rain. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna hang out, wait through it, see how I do, like wait for the next climb, see if I get better. But then we got to this road, like highway, and that was a 7 or 8 mile descent. I froze my ass off. Like that did me in. I stopped on the side of the road of that highway, like halfway through it, and I got more hand warmers out and just put them in my gloves because my fingers were super cold, put the hood on my rain jacket back up. I still didn't feel like I needed to put my puffy jacket back on. Like noticed an immediate difference with the hood up. And I was just kind of waiting for my fingers to start getting a little bit better. Turned onto the next gravel road that was just gonna be a longer, there was some very small climbs on it, but making my way down into Oark for what was going to be my first restock of the day. I did a small climb on that gravel hill, and that was when I got cell service, and I was like, my hands, like I am getting very cold. I had cell service, so I prematurely sent a text to Jesse's parents. I was like, hey, here's where I'm gonna be, like, I'm most likely gonna need a pickup. Okay, so I am almost to Oark. I have officially requested a pickup from Jesse's parents. I'm freezing and I can't get warm, and my gloves are very, very wet. My legs are just drenched. I'm wearing my like super thick specialized neoprene shoe covers, a normal base layer, my paw long sleeve, got my rain jacket on. I'm 37 and a half miles in 4 hours and 22 minutes. And I'm like, I think 9-ish miles from Oark still. So we'll see if they get my text. So during all of this, Jesse's dad was racing too. He was doing the 50 miler and he actually won it. So congrats, Jason, super cool. Jesse's mom responded, she's like, okay, Jason's not back yet. Do you want me to come get you? And I was like, no, here's where I'll be, wait for Jason to finish. So I made my way back down the hill, just totally frozen. Like I was shivering, my hands were not at all okay. Get into the Oark general store, and the guy working there was super nice. Like I ordered a burger, he pointed me in the direction of their wood stove, and then I just ate, tried to get warmed up, and the whole time, like I was just going through phases of shivering uncontrollably. Talked to a few locals. A few of them sat down with me, were chatting with me while I was like trying to decide, am I gonna keep going, am I not? And one of them picked up my gloves and he was like, oh, these are totally soaked. And I was like, yeah, my hands are super cold. Like I'm for sure, I think I'm done, because the spare pair of gloves I had were just a really thin liner glove. It wouldn't have done anything to block the wind or the rain. I would have been in the exact same situation again. And I'm not finishing. I'm happy I'm not gonna be cold. So at this point, I was 43 miles in, about 4.5 hours into the event, and they had Wi-Fi there, which was awesome. So I was able to just pull up and check the tracking. I was like, oh, cool. Jesse's coming through soon. So I sent another text to Jesse's parents, was like, hey, for sure, here's where I am. Come get me, please, when you have a chance. And then I waited for Jesse to come through.
Oh, I love when the timing works out like that. So we're gonna switch now to me, because I also rode to Oark on the route. One of the cool things that I loved about the reroute was that everybody started the race together, and that was fun. Although I immediately started sprinting out of the parking lot. The race started up a big pavement climb. And I just wanted to get out ahead, like, because there's so many more people doing the route. I was just like, let me just get out ahead and I will be able to kind of just focus on my own thing. I knew I was racing to win the event, and that was just part of my plan, which is that get out of the campground as quickly as possible and just focus on doing what was going to be time trial effort for me. A guy who I was racing last year too, his name is Nick Leonard, who was doing Despair as like a super fast effort. He got 2 flats in Buffalo Headwaters in 2025, so he was unable to finish that race, but he saw what I was doing and followed me out the campground, and we were climbing the first paved hill together. There were 2 100-mile racers in front of us, and one of them was Morgan Chafin, who is a pro gravel racer. She's pretty fast, and she usually specializes in like that 100-mile distance, so it was cool. I don't know her personally, but I follow her on Instagram. They had gravel bikes. They weren't like small tires, but they were like gravel bike tires, and so I figured they weren't doing the 200, so we weren't too stressed out about them. We had a situation where Nick and I were just kind of catching up and talking. It was fun to hang out with him. I think he was descending faster than me, and we were climbing about equal. He had built himself a sweet drop bar super caliber, although he did not have Aero extensions. And what happened is we got up the first climb, it kind of mellowed out, and I realized that not only was I catching the people on gravel bikes who didn't have Aero bars, I was also putting a lot of stress on Nick, and it was fairly easy to drop him whenever I would get in the Aero bars. There's a lot of debate on whether or not to use Aero bars for this event. If you want to be like competitive, I think they're essential, because even though you're mostly climbing or descending, every single time it is mellow, you can get down and immediately increase your speed 5 miles per hour. Like, it's that much of a difference. And if you're like really trying to push a fast time out there, you basically have to have them, in my opinion. One other thing I forgot to mention, we mentioned in a previous video that Ted King was going to be at this race. He ended up not being able to make it because of the scheduling change. So that's why Ted King is not being talked about right now. I figured I should mention that. So we get to the first kind of big downhill, and I passed both the people on gravel bikes, and I figured Nick would be kind of not far behind me. He didn't catch me on that downhill, but then the next climb, I went pretty fast up that climb. The same climb Chase talked about. I was kind of time trialing to Buffalo Headwaters single track. The plan in my head was I have a flat bar mountain bike, Nick has a drop bar mountain bike, and I did that last year. I rode a drop bar mountain bike through Buffalo, but even without Nick being in this story, I really wanted to optimize for the Buffalo Headwaters single track. I lost so much time in that last year, at least in my own head. I thought it took me longer than it should have. I was really like hell bent on just having a really fast split through there. I get there, I was with Morgan Chafin at the time, and she kept going, and I turned onto the trail, and I really went for it. I was feeling great at this point. I was alone in the trail. Being alone in the trail in mountain bike races is really important, because nobody can see you and nobody knows how fast you're going, and it's a big advantage. And then everything changed. I came up to the very first water crossing of Despair, and Doom too. Doom was doing the same thing. Doom and Despair had the same route all the way to the end of the Buffalo Headwaters, I'm pretty sure. I see this water crossing, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, is there a narrower path that I can maybe jump over? And there's not. There's just not at all. I remounted my bike, and I thought to myself, like, well, the only way to not get wet would be to successfully ride through this, which it was a good idea. And I did successfully ride through this creek. I did not crash in the creek, but water went up to my knees on this water crossing, and I was riding. And now we're playing a different game. So I'm soaking wet, my shoes are wet, everything's wet. Now I have to change my strategy a little bit. The funniest thing that happened the whole event was that on this exact same water crossing, my power meter bricked. You could see it drop out on the screen. So it went from having power meter, and my flight attendant went from working, and it just bricked. So hit the water, completely died, stopped working. It happened so suddenly, it was hilarious. I tried to fix it with a battery. I had extra coin cell batteries, and I haven't messed with it since, and I'm hoping it's dried out, but I spent so much time setting up hardtail flight attendant to only have it for the first 35 miles of this 200-mile event. Luckily, whenever it drops out, it just goes into open mode, so it's not a big deal, but definitely a funny thing that happened. In the headwaters, there's way more crossings than just the first one, but at this point, I was already super wet, so what I did is I ended up just walking through the rest of them, and I was like, physically, I was feeling great. It was about 40 degrees and I had dressed for it. Like I was properly dressed. I wasn't underdressed at all. So yeah, this is my legitimate, just like normal rain jacket. This is a Carhartt Whip product that the night before the race, I was kind of just debating on what to do. Like we brought these rain ponchos and I was just like, you know what? Like, that's stupid, it's so cold, like I'm just gonna race in this. And that was a really smart choice by me. My helmet fit into the hood and I could zip it up. I had this awesome kangaroo pouch too that I like put my sunglasses in there at one point. But yeah, shout out to Work in Progress for making a bike race worthy raincoat is what I would say. Ozark Gravel Doom worthy raincoat. Anyway, so but I haven't given up yet. So like I know I have a serious problem with how wet I am, but I don't let that stop me and I just keep going. And I was very, very happy I got out of the headwaters in just under 2 hours. Like you could basically say I did it in 2 hours. And I knew that was a really fast time. I was very, very happy with how I was doing at this point in the race and stoked. I didn't know how big of a lead I had because I was alone the whole time, but I knew that it would be tough for anybody to go faster than I did through there. The only person that might have is maybe Travis, but he was single speed. I'm gonna end up racing Travis all year. So shout out to Travis Jolly. Before the descent into Oark, this is where things started to get a little bit hairy. There is a water crossing and it's a bridge, it's concrete and it has rushing water and I wouldn't say it was safe. My camera was mounted right here on the bike, so the reason the camera angle is all wonky is because of that. I threw the bike over my shoulder and what I did to try to cross this safely was I put one foot down, like stomped it down and made sure I had good traction. And I just did that. And it wasn't even big steps though. I was kind of doing like this. And what you want to do whenever you're crossing water like that is first do that, but you want to pick your foot up out of the water and then re-enter it. Or maybe you don't, but that's how I handled it. I was just like, because like pushing against the current, it like wants to push you off balance. So I found that it was easier for me to like up and then down and very intentional steps. Made it across and then you climb this ginormous climb into the final descent into Oark. This is actually, I think, how the race ended 2 years ago whenever I did the second edition of Ozark Gravel Doom. The descent is amazing. It's so much fun. Like definitely a highlight of the day for me. And I get to Oark and originally I hadn't even planned on stopping at Oark. I was legitimately not gonna stop, but I'm in need of a solution. So again, I am not freezing cold right now. I'm wet. But again, I wore enough layers that I was warm. I was thinking to myself, like, I need to figure out how to be warm through the night. And so I made the decision to turn right and go to Oark, and I see Chase's bike kind of just sitting there. Go inside and I'm gonna put my foot and then sock in this and then put my shoe over it. Yeah. I was basically, I was physically fine and I was still riding strong. And at that point I had about a 10-mile lead or so, which was deceptive because 10 miles, Nick, who was chasing me, had the big downhill, so that was gonna be a really fast section. So roughly 5-mile legitimate lead, maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes. But that was the first time I had any idea of like where I was in the field, and that was just because Chase had been watching it while she was like hanging out at the general store. So I was in a really great position. Like I was very confident as long as everything else was gonna go right. Like I was in a winning position for this event, and putting the bags over my socks like was a good idea. We're gonna get into like what I could have done differently, which is effectively, I don't think I could have really done very much to solve this problem, but I checked the weather, and unfortunately it was going to be colder at nighttime, and I was fine riding in 40 degrees. I mean, it wasn't fun, but I rode the next 10 miles to the neutral aid cabin. On the way to the cabin was the time where I decided I wasn't getting warmer, I was getting colder, and I did not want to put myself in a dangerous situation. It was just not gonna be in the cards for me to finish. And I wasn't in any sort of dangerous situation at the time, and I had felt like it was the right time to call the event before I put myself in something that would have been dangerous to do. The neutral aid was a really safe spot for me to pull out of the event. There's food there, and I could have rode to, let's see, I was on a really strong pace, so I think I was going to be able to ride about 120 to 140 roughly before the sun went down, because it basically gets dark at like 8, and I had a good amount of time left. But yeah, got to the aid and I decided it was a done deal. Definitely not a waste of a trip or anything like that. Like I rode like 70, or basically rode 80 miles, which was super fun. The mountain bike trail was super fun. Most, if not all, of my equipment decisions were successful, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I knew Chase was getting picked up. My parents were already on the way with the truck, and I used the Wi-Fi, or the Starlink Wi-Fi at the cabin, and told Chase to come get me after they picked you up from Oark. And then funny enough, Nick gets to the cabin, and he's actually in worse shape than me. He was having a big struggle with the cold at this point, a lot worse off in terms of like how cold he was feeling. And so he ended up calling it too. And then the guy who was in first place for single speed, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but showed up shortly after and also decided to call it. So the top 3 despair riders all decided to pull out within an hour-and-a-half time span of each other, which I thought was hilarious. Big shout out to Jack Peck, who ended up winning the race. He is from the Chicago area. He came through the aid while we were hanging out there, like maybe like an hour after I got there. And he ended up finishing like 26 hours. After the event, I was messaging with him, and he told me that it in fact did get scarily cold, and he said that he had a lot of issues keeping his hands warm during the night. But check out Jack on Instagram. He has some awesome events that he himself is the race promoter for, so I just wanted to give Jack a shout out on this video.
The Michigami Challenge?
The Michigami Challenge, and I'm pretty sure that's a full circle of Lake Michigan. And he has another one called the Driftless Dragger, which Driftless Dagger. Check out his events, check him out on Instagram. He crushed it. The thing that I think he got right was that he did have extra clothing, to the best of my knowledge. If I'm wrong about that, then he's just like an Iron Man, but like I didn't pack very many extra layers.
Here's his bag setup.
So I didn't start off planning on running 2 bags. I had this bag made by South City Stitchworks. Definitely shout out to them. They are awesome, and it was funny how many people like had bags from them. But they make an awesome full-length top tube bag, and that was the missing piece of the puzzle. Although I would never have thought to pack multiple pairs of extra clothing. And I talked to Andrew the day after I finished, and he told me that I would have needed basically 3 or 4 changes, which I would have never done. I would have never put that much clothing in my bag. He said I would have probably needed a rear rack to have the extra bags, but I would have never done that. And so it just wasn't the weather that I personally am capable of performing in terms of like a safe event. For the next year, I'm gonna do a full top 2 bag because it's such a beautiful bag and it's a sick setup. This bag was incredible. In it, I have my gloves, which were my spare gloves that I never even changed into. Shout out to Panama. Their winter gloves don't seem like they would be good at all, but they were warm as hell. And I honestly, even though they were soaked through, my hands never got cold. It was never my hands that were cold. And those are the Panama thermal gloves. We have these in stock. I know it's not winter anymore. This needs to be your next winter glove. I'm blown away by how good these are. Calculated that I would need roughly 40 beta fuel gels, and that would be like no additional food. Last year I did this event in 20 hours. The course actually was a little bit quicker, and I know that sounds crazy, but the reroute, if it was sunny conditions, the rerouted course was an easier route than the prior year. Still extremely hard. I basically packed 40 gels, which is 2 gels an hour for 20 hours, or 80 grams per hour, which is a little bit less than I would do in like an XC race. I would try to hit like 100 in a 100-mile XC race, but for this, it was perfect. I was planning on stopping at the neutral aid and grabbing a snack too, so there was more opportunity, or the Deer convenience store. So yeah, I guess I just have a bunch of these for the next race now. I have some repair stuff in here. All right, so I got 2 tubes that I didn't use, and my water filter that is also not used because I did not end up needing it. I would have needed this had I done the second half of the event, but in the first half of the event, there's so many neutral aids that it was not necessary to use. And that was it. That's all that went in that bag. My light was in that bag too, but the light got installed on my bike. I took the camera off and put my light on here at Oark because I was already stopped, so it was a good time to switch to the light. And on this other side, I have nothing anymore because I was using that for my battery bank. My battery bank was in this one. Didn't end up needing it. I would have needed it. That leads me to my Hammerhead crew. At 8 hours of ride time, I had 40% battery left. And that was running the full map with the Climb Pro. Definitely really solid battery life. It's not on the level of Garmin, but Garmin is not on the level of Crew, and Crew has a much better map and computer than Garmin does. So highly recommend the Hammerhead Crew 3. I think it's an excellent computer, and I'm gonna keep using it all year. All right, I'm gonna cut my bell off. This year, last year I had Jesus on a crucifixion. This year I had the Go Green marijuana gremlin bell. And I think it worked because, I mean, like, realistically, nothing bad happened to me, you know? Like, I had good luck. One of my buttons fell apart during this event, and actually that was really challenging because dirt got in there, and the button, I had to kind of like clean the button out. You can replace those, so like I'll pull this off and put a different rubber on it. Aero bars were excellent. Doing the shifting on the aero bars was a game changer, and like I thought it would be. I was so much faster having that here, and I am so glad that I went through the trouble to do that. Flight attendant hardtail, I know we released a video where I put a whole shock in my bag. Well, that was a little bit of a lie. So it wasn't a lie at the time, but as of April 10th, you can update your fork and it will work on a hardtail out of the box now. So SRAM has released the firmware. Everybody can run hardtail flight attendant, and at the event I had the beta version of the software, and it was brilliant. It was so good, especially with the aero bar, because I didn't have to take my hands off the aero bars. The fork was just soaking up all the bumps. And remember, I've forked this bike. This is a 120 travel SID 35 Ultimate that I will not be taking off this bike ever because I think it's excellent on the bike, but I loved this setup. The bike was brilliant. Personally, I think this is the optimal bike for Ozark Gravel Doom, and I know not everybody is gonna have this bike because bike packing is more cultural in a weird way. I'm the weird one at the event. I have the weird optimized bike. Like, we have an unlimited budget for making a bike like this. Most people have awesome custom bikes made or a bike packing specific bike. If you want to go fast though, highly recommend the Specialized Epic World Cup for bike pack racing. There's some awesome deals on these right now, and if you want one, let us know. We can definitely help you get one. Although I'm not 100% sure these are going to be available for much longer. I'm not sure Specialized is going to do another model year with this bike. They haven't told me yet, but I just wanted to warn everybody, like, the World Cup might not be a bike going forward. So if you want one, definitely grab one before it's too late. And hopefully I'm wrong, because I really love this bike, and it's probably one of my favorite bikes I've ever owned. Although it's super niche, it's just so much fun to do builds like this with. I couldn't do this on my Epic 8. I could, but it wouldn't be as effective. The power meter bricking, yeah, I don't know if that works or not. It's still not connected to the flight attendant. So I think I might have to warranty that, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. However, yeah, the ceramic speed pulleys still spin, which is really surprising. That thing's pretty durable. So, I mean, honestly, yeah, I think I just clean that up and it should be no problem at all. How's the bottom bracket? I have ceramic speed bottom bracket too, so let's see how that's doing. That needs a service, so we'll definitely need to re-grease the bottom bracket. And let me see what the pulley wheels sound like. Okay, so we're re-greasing all of it. Oh, the top one's dialed. Top one feels good, bottom one needs serviced. Okay, not a huge issue. I also had the Control World Cup wheels, which again, optimal wheel for Ozark Gravel Doom. If you want a set of these, you can just order them on our website right now. And we have a ginormous quantity coming in the mail. We've basically, ever since that first video, we've sold close to 20 or something sets, and we are just taking pre-orders for them at this stage. I expect the shipment to come in late April or early May. There are still sets available for that ship window, and if you want to get in line, feel free just to place the order on our website. It will be first come, first serve though. The most important thing of this event though, I was on the fence, but I'm not on the fence anymore. The Vittoria peyote tires. This is an S tier tire, y'all. This is one of the best tires I've ever ridden, and I am going to continue to use this tire because of how good it is. Gonna be racing these at Kahutta. The reason I went with them was because of rollingresistance.com. I think I talked about this in a previous video. They had some of the best tread puncture resistance on the market, and they also were really fast rolling. But something I never really pay attention to on rollingresistance.com, they do this like wet grip test that I mean, I've never really cared about that, but it was so wet at the race, and I can confirm that these have the best wet grip I've ever experienced on a mountain bike tire ever. Like, it was so much fun. Kudos to Vittoria. This is truly an incredible tire, and you guys should check it out. We have them in stock, so you can order them at thebicyclestation.com. If you are looking to do Ozark Doom in the future, I 100% recommend this tire for Ozark Doom, and probably the optimal Ozark Doom tire. I've done this event 3 times on 3 different tires, and this is the best one I've used so far. Sweet Protection Panama helmet is, again, I'm doing a helmet video, but I told everybody I was gonna do extensive testing, and at this point, none of the helmets I'm making this video about are bad at all, but I especially like this one right now. I have not tested this one in any sort of warm condition, but the reason I chose it for Ozark Doom is because it has these covers that are magnetic, and I thought that if it was gonna be hot, I could like cool off, which honestly was not relevant for the day, but it could have been relevant. It had the covers, so there's very little like venting, and with the rain, actually that ended up being a very nice feature on this helmet. So I at first I thought this was a little gimmicky, but the more I've used it, the more I actually really enjoy it. The only unknown about this helmet right now is like how much venting there is whenever it's warm out, and I will follow up with y'all in that helmet video. And then the other thing is before the race, Chase and I spent an hour looking for our U-Sweep bags and could not find them. Like, I don't know what happened. We just lost them. Seriously, like, we looked through everything we had. And so luckily we own a bike shop. We were literally leaving town, pulled back into the parking lot, and just grabbed 2 bags really quick. And this is the mountain light one, right, Chase?
Yeah, it's the mountain bike one.
The mountain bike one. It's the lightweight mountain bike one. It's like a 2-liter bladder. But the reason I grabbed this one was because I actually wanted the pouch, which is removable, by the way. You can pull the pouch off, which Yeah, this is a good bag because like it's basically just the other one now. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's really similar to the Outlander Pro.
Yeah.
It's just like you have the added removable pouch.
Yeah, so that I mean, I don't know where my other one is, but this is probably going to be my bag for the year now because I don't know where my previous one was. This is kind of what my toolkit was for the event. I brought, if you are a fan of the channel, you know that last year I did the whole race with this light. This was my backup light this year. So I was very much covered in terms of the light situation. I had a Silca multi-tool that also has two transmission master links inside of them. I like that feature a lot because I always have a master link in my tool. Extra chain lube. Science says that you have no reason of re-lubing your chain once the chain is dirty, but it makes it quiet, and I just did it anyway because why not? CO2 inflator, extra contacts, and a few batteries. What is in here? Oh, the extra CR 2032s and then 2 CO2s. There is also a pump that I put in here. It fits better in this pouch, but that's my Silca hand pump, and that is like all the stuff that I had in my bag. Yeah. I would say the star of the show was the Vittoria Peyote Tires #1 best piece of equipment I used. My Carhartt work in progress raincoat did the most work. I think that was the weirdest thing I did, but I was looking at both my rain jackets before we left, and I'm really glad I grabbed that one.
I mentioned this in my bike check video before the race, but I had some bags made by Rockgeist out of Asheville. So I did a custom full frame bag and then a top tube bag. So during the race, I had some gels in this bag, and then I had my DJI camera just stuck in here, so it was easy to pull out. But I primarily just use this for food, just easy stuff to grab. And then over here on this side, this is literally just my trash pocket. I obviously need to do a lot of cleaning. Whenever I ate a gel, I just would shove all the trash in here, so now it's a gross, sticky pocket. I obviously wasn't out there that long to eat a ton. This bag split up into 2 pockets. So I mentioned earlier, I originally started with this pocket full of gels, but had to pivot and put my puffy in here. And then up in this top part, I had my water filter shoved up there. I didn't have to use this because the first half of the race, there were so many places to stop. Like there was before I think he went into Buffalo Headwaters, there was an aid station there. I didn't stop at that one. And then Oark was at like mile 42, 43-ish. So that was in my head, like the next place I would go for water. Hard to say if I would have needed this at the end of the race, but now I have it. I threw in a couple extra zip ties just in case on my backpack, which I'll get into in a moment. I had my tracker zip tied to it, so
Me too.
just a few zip ties if something happened with that, or if for whatever reason I needed to zip tie anything else. With this being my first event of this style, like I've done 100 milers before, but this is a wildly different event than like doing Mid-South or Unbound 100 mile. You can't even compare them. They're 2 totally different types of events. So I had a battery pack in Anchor. I think this is, 10K. It's half a pound, and I had this ready to go in case I needed to charge my phone, or I rode with my Wahoo Element Roam, which I'll get into the Roam in a minute because I don't think I would use that in the future. So that was kind of it for this top pocket. And then down below here, I shoved in, I had so many extra hand and toe warmers. So when Jesse went out to buy batteries the night before the race, he also got 3 hand warmers for himself, 3 for me, and then he also got the same number of toe warmers. I already had brought 1 pack of hand warmers and then 2 sets of toe warmers that were just living in my cycling bag. So I packed all of these as extras because I don't handle the cold well, and I knew I would really have to work hard to stay warm. 10 minutes before I put on my gloves for the event, I had hand warmers in them, pre-warming my gloves. I started the event with 2 toe warmers on each foot. I had 1 on the bottom of my foot and 1 on the top. And that worked really, really well until it didn't. Basically, every time I would start going downhill, I would freeze. And so it got to the point where I was descending slower and slower, just in an effort to avoid more wind on my body chilling me. So I went crazy, packed a lot of these. Necessity for me personally. And then I just shoved all of my like tools and repair stuff down here. So I had a dart. I currently have Stan's fluid in my wheels. Coming up, I'm gonna start trying some other ones. I wanna try Silca, and then I really like the Squirt chain loop, and I think I saw that they have a sealant as well. So if you've tried that one, let me know. But yeah, there's some CO2 in here, little tool, get into the light in a moment. More CO2, and then I have a Pirelli lightweight latex inner tube, and then just a tire lever. I did bring this headlamp because originally I was going to do the 200 mile, and so this was going to be one of my lights, and I was actually going to remove the strap and mount this to my helmet. But since I got down to the 100, had no idea how long I would be out there, so I had this charged and ready to go, and just decided like, meh, whatever, if I need it, I'll just throw this over my helmet as a whole. Just a headlamp, and glad I packed it, but did not end up needing this. I was originally planning on doing the 200, and when I made all of my bike setup choices and purchases, that was all with the 200 mile in mind. So I was over biked and over, like, I had too much set up for the 100. Like, I did not need this entire get up here. So if you're looking for suggestions for the 100 mile, you can feel free to reach out to Jesse and I. Like, we'll both give you a ton of suggestions. With it being colder, I did need all of the extra bags and bag space. But that being said, if it was warmer out, I probably would have tried to cut down on my baggage a little bit, just because I wouldn't have needed space. We had to grab some USWE bags literally on our way out of town. We moved in the fall and cannot find our hydration packs anywhere. Like, Jesse looked for me in the house for an hour. That didn't include all of the other time I spent digging through every possible box, drawer, cabinet, shelf, literally everything in our house. Like, I went through our daughter's closet, nothing. So thankfully we had them in stock. I mentioned gloves. These are actually still wet because I have not cleaned out my bag and I'm a gross person. These are some specialized, I don't know, it says Windstopper lobster gloves. I've had these for years, like well before we owned the store. Typically, they are perfect for me in colder conditions, and I like these because they're not a super stiff glove, so I can still move my hands, but they're not waterproof. I think maybe slightly water resistant, but once the misty rain kind of soaked through these, I was done for. When on the road highway, I stopped and I put an extra set of hand warmers inside the glove, still freezing. And when I actually got into the general store, that was when I realized how cold my fingers truly were. Like, I got a cup of coffee from them, and it was like that stinging, burning feeling in my hands from like when you're trying to get warmed up. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to realize like how cold I truly was. So for next year, if it's bad again next year, regardless, I'm gonna need to figure out a different glove solution. I don't know if I need to look at more of a neoprene type glove, but if you have recommendations, comment below, because I'm in the market for gloves. Like what Jesse used, I have some of them. Like, it's not enough for what I personally need, but it was worth a shot. Yeah, nothing else in here. I did pack just like 2 things of Element just for fun in case I needed it. That was it for my hydration pack. And then from there, had the aluminum Aero bars. I didn't use these a ton. I was down in them a handful of times, basically practicing being in them before I was like super tired and really felt like I needed them and like needed to be in a different position. So it's kind of pointless for me personally. Probably will come in handy in the future. The buttons were great though. Messed with that. And then grips, I hated. Going into the race, I had told Jesse multiple times, like, I need to change my grips. I need to change my grips. Life happened. Grips never got changed. These are some ODI.
The
Tinker Dreadlock, yeah. These are good grips. Do not get me wrong. I love these grips. But I just wanted some more squish. That was it. Just being on my bike for a while, I just wanted squishier grips. Flight attendant worked really, really great. There were a few times, like when I'm sitting on the bike, this armrest perfectly blocks the little flight attendant light up thing. So at the beginning, there were a few times I found myself like sitting up a little bit more, like peering over, like and over and back, trying to like look at this and be like, is it working? Is it working? It was working. It worked great. I really didn't have to think about it at all. It was wonderful. And then Jesse talked about the peyote tires, and man, he's not being dramatic about how good this tire is. At the beginning where I rode, there was a lot of peanut buttery type mud, and I was doing one of the descents before I got cold, and I was like, woo, like having fun going down, and I turned a corner and there was just like a massive pile of peanut butter mud, and I definitely did like a little woo type bad thing to like try not to wipe out. Thought I was gonna eat shit, did not eat shit, which was cool, but the tires handled it like a champ. Like I never felt like I was gonna die. They still felt fast. I didn't feel like I was on a super sluggish tire, but they gripped really well too. And Arkansas has really sharp rocks too. And I didn't flat, like I had absolutely no issues with these tires. I could not find a single thing to complain about with this tire. I am gonna keep running it for a little while, like Jesse too. So wheels, I just had some Zip 10 high tops. Not a specific reason for these. This is just what I had on my bike. It's what I've been running for the last year. They're the SWs. I'm not a weight weenie with like anything really. It's a solid wheel, it's reliable, it's comfortable. So for being on my bike for a while, it's a good fit. I will be racing the World Cup, the most out of any bike that I have this year. So we'll see if I stick with the high tops on it for the year or not. I'm still debating that, and I need to talk to Jesse about all my wheel options for each event and see what makes sense, but no complaints about those. The Specialized Power Pro mirror saddle, I literally could not live without, especially for being on the bike for long periods of time. I was happy the whole time because of that. I think that kind of covers my entire bike setup. It was a muddy one, but it was good. And then just rode 4.5 hours, got to Oark. And funny enough, while I was filming Jesse, I was looking this up by like the timestamps on the photos on my phone. I was at the Oark general store for 4.5 hours. I got to meet and talk to a lot of fun people, got to see a bunch of racers, got to talk to a lot of locals. One of them sat there with me for about an hour and a half, showing me pictures of waterfalls and telling me about Bigfoot. So that was a fun one. And then, yeah, another one just talked to me about his daily bike ride to the general store. So that was cool. It was a lot of fun. I met some really awesome people, and shout out to the Oark general store for letting me sit inside and just loiter for hours on end. Everyone there was so nice. They kept checking on me, making sure I didn't need anything. And they just kept bringing me coffee after coffee. And I think by the time I got picked up, I was on like my 5th or 6th cup of Folgers. So I was like really wired, but it was great. It was a lot of fun. Met some great people there. So shout out to the Oark general store. That was just the best place ever.
So yeah, that was Ozark Gravel Doom 2025. I think both of us are planning on going back next year. I don't know what distance I want to do yet, because honestly, I had a little bit of FOMO not doing the 400, and so I'll make that decision later. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, huge thanks to Andrew for putting on what is one of, if not the most exciting bike race that's happening in America right now. I think it's the most exciting bike race that's happening in the US right now. And every year it just gets better. I know this one was the most challenging one for him to put on. So congratulations to Andrew for a successful event, despite how hard of a time that was probably to be the event promoter, especially, you know, making the decision to push the event back a day. Like, that's a gutsy decision to make. And I think that is an impressive thing to have to do and decide. If you have any questions, drop them down below. We do our best to answer them, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
So now that Jesse's frame is clean, the bag like wore through.
Yeah, so there's actually a hole in the bottom of my bag. So
The bag has a hole?
the bag ripped through whatever I put there, which was my light. So my light was there. So my light cut a hole in the bag, and then it's not a huge deal. It's just clear coat. Just so everyone's aware, I knew this would happen before I left for the event, and I was excited about it happening. And I realized not everybody is like me, so you can be stressed out, but like, I think this is super sick that my bike's all screwed up now.
It's a kind of fun pattern.
It works just fine. It's fine.
It's just telling a story.
I like using it, you know? So
the bike does get used.
it gets used.
It's not a showpiece.
Yours is way better, right? Yours didn't have any.
Well, but mine has like an insane amount of paint on it. But yeah, mine's flawless. There is nothing.
I'm very shocked at how clean yours is.
Yeah, I don't know. We were just vibing.
Anyway.